You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron. Now here's your host, Ethan Haristadoulou.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Greeks Gridiron, and a happy football Sunday to you all. Week 4 is here. It is actively rolling because as I'm recording, we have, of course, the game happening overseas in Ireland between the Steelers and the Vikings. We're talking Monday Night Football predictions here. If you did not check out the predictions for this week, I post them every Friday in the afternoon, so make sure you circle back and check those out if you're just seeing this here for the first time. That being said, we got Monday Night Football action to look at. We're going to start with the first game, and that is going to be the Jets going into Miami to take on the Dolphins. So as always, I invite you all to comment down below. Let me hear from you all, your thoughts, your opinions on the matchup. Who's going to come out victorious here? We got two 0-3 teams kicking off this one here. Very curious to see what everyone's thinking from both sides of this ball game. But as a reminder, no betting advice, no gambling advice. We're here talking football. What you do with this information is solely up to you. That being said, looking at these two teams here, Jets going into Miami, taking on the Dolphins. Like I mentioned, 0-3, both teams trying to get their seasons back on track in some way. The Jets nearly stole one against the Buccaneers last week, and the Dolphins, well, they at least had a really competitive football game against a team in the Buffalo Bills that everybody thought was going to just blow their doors off on Thursday Night Football, but they hung in there. They controlled the game with their offense, with the running game, not allowing Josh Allen and the Bills to get more drives than you would like for them to have in a game where a route was very much on the table. And I think for Miami's offense in this game, you're basically looking at the same exact idea here. I don't think really much changes. Your goal is to continue that approach of control the game on the ground, limit the mistakes that can happen through the air. It's been a bit of a shaky season for Tua where he's not throwing a ton of interceptions, but it feels like he's throwing them at the absolute worst possible time. So you're trying to find that happy medium of, yes, we have these great receivers in Tyreek Hill and Jaden Waddle, but also we have a good stable of running backs. Let's control this game with that. That being said, you look at the Jets defense. Now, the way I see it, solid, I guess, per se, something along the lines, maybe below average as far as run defense is concerned, especially the last couple of weeks. They had a good showing in week 1. Week 2 got really crazy, and then week 3 kind of came back down to more like normal numbers being allowed, but they've allowed a whopping 346 on the ground so far this season. So like you're looking at like an average to below average based off the numbers allowed on average this season. So maybe in the best interest of the Dolphins to maybe just pound the rock on the ground here. That being said, when you look at what Miami did, 130 yards on the ground against Buffalo, obviously Devon Achane, talented running back. You look at Ollie Gordon, who I feel like is somebody who could excel in this offense. I think there's an opportunity to maybe find a weakness and exploit with just the way we've seen the Jets kind of stumble, at least the last couple of weeks in varying ways, obviously week 2 being the most egregious. For the Jets, I think winning in the trenches offensively is going to be almost like a win condition for this game here. And the reason I say that is if they're more physical up front at the line of scrimmage, especially on offense, you look at the way Miami is kind of set up right now. They're allowing 145 yards rushing per game this season, which is good for 28th in the NFL. So one of the worst run defenses. On top of that, you're second only to, oddly enough, Buffalo, which I guess makes sense because they played Baltimore week number 1, but Buffalo in runs over 10 yards or more allowed with 15 total. So not only are they letting teams move the ball on the ground, but they're letting teams rip for big runs here. And on top of that, when it comes to getting after the quarterback, pass rush, 6 sacks, which is putting them in the bottom third of the NFL. Their pressure rate is 31st in the NFL at just 23% or about so, and then 23 pressures, which also puts them at 31st. And this is a defense that is also blitzing at the second highest rate in the NFL. The defense is very flawed, but especially up front, they are not getting pressure. They are not able to plug up holes against the run, and dare I say, a little bit of a soft just defensive front there. So one of those things that it's there, it's obvious, it's something that I think the Jets are looking to exploit, and on top of that, if you can win your matchup on the line of scrimmage, give yourself some time, the secondary is obviously really hurt in Miami, and you could absolutely take advantage, especially should Justin Fields be good to go and he's playing in this ball game. I also have a little bit of a matchup I'll be interested in watching here. You look at, obviously, the wide receivers in Miami. We kind of touched on them briefly a minute ago, but the Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle situation, not nearly the explosive or prolific start you would expect from a typical Miami offense with these two catching passes here. Combined, you're looking at 29 receptions, 335 yards, and 3 touchdowns between the two, but they have some pretty good corners that they're going to be going up against here. You look at a Michael Carter, you obviously have to respect Sauce Gardner and what he's able to do. The Jets have been about an average or so pass defense, give or take, depending on the week, about 207 yards per game allowed to the air, 5 passing touchdowns. I'm very curious to see how that matchup works itself out, because we've seen Tyreek Hill get open for some of those splash plays. We've seen a big play or two from Jalen Waddle as well, but this offense has not been nearly as explosive despite the personnel that they employ offensively at the skill positions, running back, wide receiver included. It's one of those things where if the secondary can stay right and lock down their guys, this could be a long day for Miami, or vice versa. If just for whatever reason, Sauce Gardner's not up for the task this week, Michael Carter maybe lets something get by him here or there. It's one of those things that, regardless of which way it goes, it's one of those matchups that is well worth watching when you look at two of the highest paid in terms of just outside corner and slot corner in Michael Carter and Sauce Gardner. And then, of course, on top of that, two of the best at as a wide receiver tandem when things are rocking and rolling. That being said, as for who I think is going to win this matchup, this is a tough one. 2 0-3 teams. They've both shown they're ugly, and it's Miami's had a couple of tight contests. Jets, like I said, damn near stole it last week with a blocked kick, but honestly didn't look great for a large majority of that game. It wasn't until late in that, around late stages of the third quarter, that fourth quarter comeback, where the Jets really made things interesting, and at one point had a lead in that fourth quarter following the blocked kick return. But I am in the camp that Mike McDaniel winds up getting fired personally, so I'm expecting that to happen sooner rather than later. I will give the Dolphins, and I'll give Mike McDaniel credit. Last week, I thought they were going to get their doors blown off, and I really thought that they were not going to be able to put up much of a fight. And I even talked about how I thought they needed to go about that game and ultimately try to win, and it was basically the game plan they took. It ended up not being enough. And it just feels like we're kind of slowly but surely, even if ownership is saying we'll be patient, working our way towards a potential big change happening in Miami. So I'm actually going to lean the New York Jets on this one. I don't know how many points we're going to see in this game, because both of these defenses have had varying degrees of success or lack thereof. But I do feel like there's a chance there's going to be a lot of points in this one. Miami's offense obviously allows for that. The Jets' defense has not been perfect either. We've seen the Jets allow north of 30 points. We've seen the Dolphins allow north of 40 points. And like I said, Miami Dolphins defense, especially up front, is just not really my cup of tea. It feels like there is a lot that could be put on the table in this one. I like the Jets. I think it's a higher scoring affair, something along the lines of like a 27-24. Good Monday Night Football game. Two division rivals battling for their first win, but I think I'm leaning the Jets on this one. So that being said, as always, comment down below. Let me hear from you. Thoughts, opinions on the matchup. Who do you got? Who do you like? Anything that I didn't point out that you want to mention here about this game as well, feel free. Love discussing with you all in the comment section as always. But if you made it to the end, greatly appreciate it. Make sure you check out my other Monday Night Football preview for Cincinnati and Denver.